everyone, it's Casey, and today I'm going to do a carving video about how to carve the nose on a custom Blythe doll. So I was asked to do this video, and I had planned it for a while, and so I'm kind of at that place with this doll. This doll is going to be an African American doll, so you can see kind of my lines of where I've started carving the mouth. And I was going to do some of the nose. This is really just the very beginning of this doll. So I'm not going to talk about the mouth. If you're interested in a carving video, I do have a mouth lip carving video for sale on my Etsy shop, so check the link below if you want that. And today we're just going to talk about the nose. So the tools I use for the nose, I do use a Dremel tool. This is really the only part of the doll I use the Dremel tool for. I've said in other videos that I don't really recommend using a Dremel tool in other parts. It works very quickly, and it's very easy to make mistakes very quickly that you are unable to repair. I've heard of a lot of people damaging and ruining faceplates with the Dremel tool. I've never ruined a faceplate, but that's because when I first started out, the only tool I used was a curved file. Even for the nose, and it took a really long time. So I do use the Dremel now to speed up the process of the nose, but that's it. This Dremel tool is a pretty inexpensive one I got at Walmart. It comes with several bits, and this is the one that I use for the nose. Then of course I have a brush to brush away any dust, and some sandpaper. This is a really rough grit. It's a low number that I'm using. I just have a variety of sandpaper, so I use a low grit when I'm doing the very beginning process of the doll, and then I will go up to a finer grit like 1500, 1000 for finishing, but for right now we're really in the rudimentary beginning process, so we need a coarser paper. So that's about it. So let's get started, and I'll tell you kind of my plan for this nose. So this is, as I said, an African American. So one thing I recommend is you can look up noses on, well, faces on your computer in Google Images, which I do sometimes to kind of get an idea of a natural looking nose. And so the nose that I want to do for this doll is going to have somewhat wider nostrils, and I'm going to kind of flatten down that, which I normally do with all of them anyway. I don't like the pointy nose, but I'll probably flatten it more than I normally do. So let's start. So the first thing that you're going to want to do, and what I do, is make some points or make some dots with a pencil where you want your nostrils to be. So this will help you kind of, because sometimes it's easy to forget what your plan was when you bring the tool up and kind of go where you didn't plan. And this also helps you align them in the same place. So just go ahead and put some dots. Of course, it's not always set in stone that it will be there, but that helps guide. And then I use the Dremel tool on a very low speed to keep it from getting away from me. So I'm going to turn it on low. You're probably not going to be able to hear me talking very well while I'm doing this, so I'm just going to go ahead and let you watch. My only suggestion is that you go very carefully. You don't push or pull too far because you can easily nick the side of the nose and ruin it. So you just want to go directly in. I always start very slow. I go directly in. I examine. I sometimes go at an angle. I try to make sure to keep them both symmetrical. And my main advice is just to go as slow as possible to prevent any mistakes. So let's give it a go. And as you do one, you can brush off the dust. And when you do just one spot, you'll get a very round hole, which is not super common for nostrils. They're kind of not perfectly round, basically. So we'll kind of fix that once we get them both made. So let's do the other one. So you might be able to tell that that one is a little farther off to the side. So I'm going to assess, you can use your file to get any of that plastic off of there. So even with my planning, they're a little bit off. So this one seems farther out. I don't know if you can see, this one seems farther out. So I'm going to try to make a hole that's a little bit farther in. And this one will make a little out. So that looks to be about the basic shape I want. I think I'm going to make them a little bit deeper, and then that's all I'm going to do with the Dremel, and I will use my file to do the rest. So let's make it a little deeper. So that looks about right. So now the process of finishing the nose is not going to be a quick process. Some of the things that I do is carve under the nose, give that some definition around the sides, and then, as I said, decide on the shape at the top of the nose. For this doll, as I said, I'm going to flatten that down. So the best way to do that is sandpaper, but if you're wanting to sand down quite a lot, I recommend actually using your file. And I have a file that's flat that works a lot better. So these are the files that I use. I've been asked what kind of files or how to find one of these curved files. So they're called die sinkers, riffler, regular files. I actually inherited these from my stepfather who passed away last year, so I didn't know that they were a little bit hard to find. So there's a whole set, and I really only use the curve file, but this flat one works really good for things like filing down a nose. So I don't worry too much about scratches or making it pretty rough. I just get it kind of down to where I want it, and then work on smoothing it out. Okay, so once you have sanded it down roughly how much you want with this file, then you're going to take your sandpaper and really even it out. When you're done, take a look, see if it's where you want it. There's a little nick on the top from the file, so you might want to sand that out. But I also don't worry too much about having it exactly how I want it at this point. I just want a rough idea, because later I'll come back and sand more, and I want there to be something to work with if I decide to change it. But any really large nicks I probably will sand out. Just be careful when you're using a very low grit, coarse sandpaper that you don't over sand, because you can easily start to flatten out features that you don't really want that flattened. So the next thing you're going to do is begin to sand or to carve and file around the corners, which I've already done a little bit of because I thought the camera was recording and it wasn't. So, but it's not that important. I can tell you what I've done. So a lot of times with the dolls, I'll actually sand a little bit at the top of the nose. Because this is an African American, I'm not really going to do that. I'm just going to do it around the nose here. And I do pretty deep grooves to give it real definition. And then as far as in the nostrils, I will stick my file in here and really sand and carve and file around in there to get it sort of smooth. And same with on the top of the nostril, but you want to be careful not to make your holes misshapen. So I always do a little and then really check my work. The other thing is I've already removed part of the upper lip here. So I'm going to go in there and clean that up and sort of carve definition around the bottom of the nose. So let's do that a little bit. One thing I like about the curved file is you can use it really pointy and really scrape in there, and you can also just sort of angle it. The more and more you angle it, the more you will get the grit onto the plastic. But if you just angle it a little bit, you can get in really tiny spots, which is really helpful. So the other thing is periodically you can use your sandpaper to even everything out, but as I said, you're going to see a lot of scratch marks from the file, and you don't want to stress yourself out too much getting them all out right now, because if you do, you're just going to end up making some more as you keep filing. So I really just use the sandpaper at this point to kind of see where I'm at and see how much more I want to do, and not necessarily for finishing. And also to get any really big gouge marks out of there. So the other thing that is difficult, and you want to look at every angle, is to make sure your nose is symmetrical. So that's something I always talk about in my videos because it's something I'm a little bit obsessive about. I can't stand when one side is off from the other. So I always look at several angles while I'm working, and I don't know if you can see all the little gouge marks on the front of her nose here, so I'm going to get those out of there. So basically at this point you're just going to keep doing all the things that I said, keep shaping the nose how you want it to look. At this point I probably will not use the Dremel anymore unless I want to make the nostrils deeper. Instead I will just be adding definition around the sides of the nose and under the nose. And that's about it. So I'm going to leave the video on so you can see me work. But I'm probably not going to talk much more, so I will come back and show you the end result, and if anything comes up I will mention it. Otherwise I'm just going to let you watch me work.